Hey everybody, JC here from Toy News International. And I'm back in the studio, back from San Diego Comic-Con. It was an exciting week last week. I hope you guys enjoyed the coverage. Now I do apologize, I am recovering from a little bit of a cold, so if my voice sounds a little hoarse, that's why. But today I wanted to focus on one of the big announcements that came from DC Collectibles last week, and that's about their new DC Essential line. So just in case you missed it, they announced a new line of DC Comic action figures, and they are called DC Essentials. And these are essentially going to be replacing the Icons line. Now they didn't come out and specifically say that the Icons were canceled, but they did say that they were putting all of their focus, or most of their focus now, on these new Essentials. In fact, let's listen to an interview that Pixel Dan did with Jim Fletcher from DC Collectibles, and basically let him describe exactly how they're kind of moving forward with this.
Essentials line is great. Our action figure series designed by Jason Fabach. Jay's a big toy guy. He was super jazzed to work on that line. And what's cool about those is they're not the most articulation we've ever done, but it's the best range of movement. Okay. So we really went to town on those things. And once you see them, once we're moving them around in person and stuff, you can see all the stuff you can do.
So does this pretty much mean that Icons is probably done and wrapping up and you're switching to the Essentials line?
They're not completely out of the picture yet. I mean, as you know me, I'm never going to say, no, we're done with anything. Gotcha. However, this is where we're putting all our efforts into right now, because we have a lot of characters designed outside what you've seen over there. And the body we're working with, it's still a kind of not a one-size-fits-all, but it's pretty close to that, because we're making sure the articulation works in every single part for everybody. So you're not going to suddenly have heads that go like this, or torsos that don't quite move. We took a lot of time on this one, so it's like, yeah, we're stepping it up on this one, I think.
Okay, and again, that was an interview with Pixel Dan. You can catch the full interview with Jim Fletcher over on Pixel Dan's channel. I'll put a direct link to that in the video description below. But as you can see, like I said, they're basically shifting gears from the DC Icons and are going to start focusing on these new Essential figures. Now these Essential figures are the larger scale figures. They're not 6-inch. They're technically called 6.75 inch, but I generally refer more to them as 7-inch figures. And these are more in keeping with the older figures DC Collectibles used to do as far as scale goes, the new 52 figures that they did. In fact, pretty much most of the figures that they did until just recently with the Icons when they switched to the 6-inch scale. Now, I don't know how you feel about that. I kind of have mixed emotions. I really did like the Icons line. I know they weren't quite in perfect scale with other 6-inch lines like Marvel Legends, and that's probably something that definitely hurt that line from the get-go, because I know many of you were disappointed in that. But for me personally, I just kind of really like that line. And not that I don't like didn't like the older DC collectible figures, but I do kind of prefer probably 6-inch over like a 7-inch scale figure in general. But I also know that there's a lot of you out there who used to collect the older DC collectible figures and weren't actually terribly happy when they switched to the smaller scale, and are probably overjoyed to hear the news that they're going back to that larger scale. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is, even though they're going back to the larger scale, these figures are said to have much better articulation than most of those older 7-inch figures that DC Collectibles did. So that's definitely something that's very positive and very happy to hear. You can see from the figures that were on display at Comic-Con that you can get these in some pretty decent poses. I definitely like with that Superman figure, you can get him in a good flight pose. You can actually crank that head back, which is something you really can't even do with the Icon figures very well. So, I am happy to see that they are putting a focus on articulation with these larger scale figures. And the sculpting detail and paint applications, I mean, one thing that was really nice about the older 6.75-inch DC collectible figures is they really did have nice paint applications and sculpting detail to them. Now, the main reason why this line is called Essentials is because these figures are going to give us the bare essentials, is really how it works. Meaning these are not going to be chocked with tons and tons of accessories. We'll get a few basic ones like Batman, looks like we're going to get his Batarang and such. But like these display bases that you see with these figures that were on display with the figures at Comic-Con, those are not actually going to be included with the figures, and you're not going to see things like a lot of different head sculpts and different pairs of hands and stuff like that. And the reason for that is they're trying to keep the price point down on these. They're going to cost, these figures are going to cost $26. Now I know some of you are probably thinking, well, that's still much more expensive than a Marvel Legends, and that's true. But these figures, like the icons, they were upping up to about $28. And the reason why they're more expensive than, say, like a mainstream line like Multiverse or Marvel Legends is because these are made in much smaller numbers. They're made for the collector markets, sold specifically at like comic and specialty shops and stuff, and therefore the price is a little bit more. But you know, for a line like this, $26 is pretty standard. And in order to keep that price point, that's why they're kind of cutting out a lot of the accessories that we had seen like previously with icons and stuff, or at least what we were supposed to see with icons and stuff. You know, some of these accessories that they would show with the figures ended up getting cut anyway, so you know, I'm not sure it's that big a deal. But that's why it's called Essential, because you're just getting the bare essential, the figure itself, with this line. The Aquaman figure is looking good. Looks like Aquaman will come with his trident. So like I said, we will get probably basic accessories. Wonder Woman's going to have her lasso, so that'll be good. Green Lantern, I don't know if we'll get, I mean, obviously he's got his ring sculpted, but I don't know if we'll get any kind of blast effects. Nightwing looks like he'll have a couple weapons. Deathstroke will have like his sword and stuff. So, you know, we'll have basic accessories with these, just not like different head sculpts and things like that. Overall detail on these look really good. The Superman I think looks good. The Nightwing is looking good. So definitely some nice looking figures. Looks like they're going to start out with the core characters, you know, the core Justice League members. Now these figures are not going to see release until next year. These are next year figures. We will still, even though they're pretty much winding down the Icons line, I think we will still see those figures that were, you know, shown at Toy Fair earlier in the year. The Doomsday 2-pack, the Supergirl figure, the Robin and Superboy 2-pack, and the Nightwing figure. All of those should still be coming out at the end of this year, and then we'll see the shift to the Essentials next year. I don't think we'll see the first batch of Essentials until around July, so we really have got almost a whole year to go before we're going to start seeing these figures on shelves. And you know, I'm kind of curious if, you know, if you've been collecting the Icons, do you plan on making the shift to the larger scale? Are you going to still get these final Icon figures that are coming out at the end of the year? Or are you basically like, well, if they're not even going to really continue the line, I'm just not even going to bother getting these final figures? You know, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section below and how you feel about this change in scale and everything. Again, you know, I understand it from DC Collectibles standpoint. They've got a lot of people who in the past bought their larger scale figures, and I think that's what they're trying to get back into with this line. But you know, if you are a 6-inch collector, or if you've been collecting the Icons for the last year, you probably do feel a little slighted. And you know, I can't say I blame you. You know, I'm kind of feeling the same way. I'm not unhappy with these new Essential figures because, again, I think they look good. I have plenty of larger scale figures from the older DC collectible lines that these will probably match up nicely with, and so I'm not like super upset, but I can definitely understand if you were purely a 6-inch collector or purely an Icon collector, how you'd feel kind of upset over this news. So let me know in the comments section what you think. Is this a line that you're going to give a shot and check out next year when the figures get released? Okay, so that's it for today. I should be back tomorrow with a full-on regular news video to go over. There's been some news happening since Comic-Con last week, and we can also just touch base on some of the bigger things that were announced at Comic-Con as well. So be sure to check into that. As always, you know, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Like the video if you're so inclined. Please subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. Also, you can follow me on my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram accounts. I'll have links to those in the video description as well. And until next time, I will catch you later.